we just got done doing a podcast, HC Foods, here in Commerce.
Here's the original Red Bull. The other one from Thailand. HC Foods was actually one of the first people to ever sell Red Bull. This one is from Cambodia. It tastes just like Red Bull, and it tastes really good. And then for the Hispanics, the Lipovitan. That's what the Hispanics used to carry, and still do so. They got.
Thanks for tuning in to the Golden Empire podcast. Make sure to subscribe.
All right, here we go. So this is episode 5, and we're here with Tim Sher. How you doing today, Tim?
Good, very good. Thanks you for coming to our office today.
So I came by because we've been meeting with different people and want to talk about the industry and different parts of the industry. And you're a distributor owner, and we wanted to get the perspective of a distributor, kind of see what you guys are doing and where you guys are at, and just kind of, the overall business and how you guys see it on your guys' side of the business. So let me ask you, how did you guys start the business? How did it originally start?
So my parents started in 1997, no 87. So it's 30 plus years right now. They started in Chinatown, just delivering rice, buying and selling from local distributors. And then as my father grew, he started going directly to Thailand. So the majority of our product comes from Thailand. So he's kind of built that relationship over the years. And recently we're kind of trying to figure out more products because we do distribute to a lot of the Asian retailers and restaurants. But there's so many good products out in Asia that we're trying to figure out what we can do to get into the mainstream. So that's taking a while, but it's a good learning experience.
And let's take it back. So when did your dad get here? Because what's important for me too is for people to understand, like, you guys are pretty established in this industry, in this side of the business with the Asian markets. You guys do really well. But how did your dad even get here? Was he already here? How did it all start for him?
Okay, yeah, we're all immigrants. So my father or our family came to the U.S. in 1976. Lucky enough, the city that we immigrated to was Honolulu, so we got pretty lucky living in such a tropical weather. But because the island was so small and my dad was kind of like the oldest in his family, really business oriented and had to take care of 7 siblings, he was like, I gotta go to the mainland and then try to find a job. So we moved to San Diego, and he just kind of fell into the food business. It seems like a lot of immigrants, when they come here, they're either in restaurants, small distribution, but it all surrounds food because that's kind of what they do. So he would drive. I remember he would every weekend or every Sunday, he would drive up to LA, and then he'll be here for the weekdays because LA was kind of where the business was at. And so he would drive back on Friday night to see us in San Diego. After he kind of got his footing, that's when we moved back. We moved to LA in 1984, so I was 9 years old.
So since you were born, you were pretty much born into the industry.
Yeah, correct. Like I remember every weekend we would come here in the summer. We'd spend all our summers here as well. So we kind of helped out with the business, unloaded containers, did little things just to help out. It's pretty cool. I kind of knew I was going to get into the business when I was small, because my personality is pretty close to my dad's. So it's been quite an experience, and so far I'm loving what I do.
So I've been working with you guys for a few years now, probably 4 years. Just helping you out with different projects and stuff like that. You guys are a real family business. So who else in the family's part of the business right now?
Oh yeah. So I have my 2 sisters here. My wife is here, and then we also have my mom and dad still involved, and then I also have newborn twins that are here, but they're not helping out too much.
Well, not yet, right? But they're learning just like you did, right? So I've been here and I see your family working, and everybody's like good people, and I enjoy seeing them and working, and everybody has a different role, right? So what roles does everybody kind of play?
Oh, that's a leading question because we don't have roles. We do everything.
But you guys are head of departments, like your sister.
Correct.
One of your sisters does this part. So who kind of does what parts?
So my sister is pretty much the general manager. She's been here since she came out of college. She's been helping my family, sacrificing a lot as well. So she kind of oversees pretty much all the sales team, and then she also does all the purchasing and also all the government, like FDA, USDA, things like that, to customs to get it in. For myself, I joined the company 6 years ago. I was overseas for a while, just kind of having fun, being like the black sheep of the family. But coming in, I kind of like opened up the, kind of led the company in a different way, saying, hey, we have all these good products, try to make our product more, I guess, design-wise, more Americanized. You know, some of the packaging isn't that great because it's been the same packaging for over 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, a lot of brands, you know, so they're not going to change it. But of course, it's all about convincing, saying if you want to grow the market, this is what you need to do. You know, so for myself, it's kind of new business development. We created new products that are ready for the U.S. market. We're proud that this year we'll probably be launching in Walmart, CVS, and Costco. So that's my part. So I really don't take care of like the bread and butter of the company. So unfortunately, I think my parents or my family's been pretty supportive. I think I've been sucking a lot of the revenue so far. But
yeah, but so someone has to do it.
So
not everybody can make money for the company.
But they know it's a learning experience. They kind of see that, okay, how can we grow? Because at our point, like just selling to the Asian market, yeah, that's growing and everything like that, but it's been steady. But with costs going up, we need to think twice, like how are we going to double the company? And then that's not going to happen if we continue to do what we're doing.
How about your other sister? She's here too, and then your mom and dad. Do this, you know, what role does your other sister play? And your mom and dad, are they still kind of really active with the company?
My second sister, she does more of like the office stuff, so she makes sure it's all the licensing, anything in the office in terms of like supplies and things like that. So she's good with that. My mom oversees like kind of like the CFO and the accounting side still, but we kind of want her to move away from that and then just help out. My dad's he still gets a lot of the reports and stuff like that, so he still makes the final decision. But as for the daily stuff, they're pretty much all hands on.
He still probably has a lot of the relationships with the brands. You know, some of the guys probably have had for a while, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. He's kind of like, I guess,
like the
puts out
ambassador
the fire,
or the
That's like,
ambassador of the company.
Yeah, the supplier is giving us problems, and he'll just make a phone call or something like that.
And I bring all that stuff up because I've been here on Saturdays or Sundays, and your family's here working. You know, like they're here on Saturdays. I see like the niece and nephews here, and they're pitching in as well when they're probably off of school. You know, in summer and all that stuff. And I just feel it's important to talk about that because, like, what it takes to build a company. You know, like you guys are working 6 to 7 days a week. You know, working long hours. Everybody's pitching in. It's not, you know, like everybody has to put in their time, or else it wouldn't be what it is. And I feel that's important for people to know, like, how much you have to put in to build a successful business.
I think that's the hard part that sets like entrepreneurs apart than staff. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people that I think people have a simplistic idea about like, oh, I want to be successful, you know what I mean? But they don't really lay down the groundwork, unfortunately. You know what I mean? The good thing is that if you're an entrepreneur, that at least you have staff that does understand that mentality, and they work hard for the company as well. You know, but yeah, it's true. You have to really sacrifice a lot, and I think one thing as a business owner you have to realize is that not all staff, they have to watch out for themselves. You know what I mean? So my dad's still pretty traditional. He's always pushing them like, hey, why don't you guys work just as hard? You know what I mean? Like in the end, we're family. The only reason why we sacrifice is that. But if I had like a different job, I'll be the same as the staff, you know, putting my 8 hours and that's about it. You know, the more I put in doesn't matter. But for us, as a family, it's the more you put in, the more you can get out of, you know.
Well, and I understand what you're talking about, being an entrepreneur myself. It's kind of hard for someone else to have the vision and understanding because they don't think that way. There's very few people that do think that way. What I tell my team is like, you know, I don't expect you to work 6, 7 days, put 12, 15, 17, 18-hour days like I do. But if you're going to work for 4 hours for me today, or you're going to work with us for 8 hours today, like just give me your best, 4 hours. Give me your best 8 hours. But going back to some of the stuff that you were saying, you're selling yourself short because I've worked with you and I've traveled with you, and you left, the family business to go to China for a while. And I know talking to you, you started your own businesses over there too. Like, what are some of the ventures that you kind of tried and just things that you might have done over there when you were in China?
Oh yeah. When I was overseas, pretty much my first job, I was working for electronic component company. So I was selling to the now defunct Nokia, things like that, Motorola when they were pretty big. It was pretty interesting because the way the Chinese business is run, everything is run through relationships. So even if you have a good product, it doesn't really matter. So in the end, a lot of the contracts were made at night when you went to drinking or you went to clubs and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting how they do it because in the end, they have the really simplistic mentality that I have to like the people I work with,
Yeah.
you know, because there's plenty of opportunities out there. So that's how they became so successful. So that's one thing I learned, that like when I looked at the way they built their company, it was all through friendships and families and stuff. So it's like, hey, my classmate is now a government official, or like my classmate is now working for this, and they kind of all help each other and they all kind of rose together. It's pretty interesting how they did it. And then from there, I kind of decided that, okay, well, why don't I try to do some things myself? So seeing how China back in, I guess, 2005, they were kind of behind. They didn't have a lot of smartphone computers. There wasn't a lot of computers in the home. So I decided to try to maybe take some of the platforms here to China. So one platform that I liked was Yelp, which was searching for restaurants. So they didn't have any searches for restaurants. So that was my first venture doing that. It was pretty good, but I didn't know much about IT, and I think the model was pretty good because after I launched it for like 6 months, I already had like 5,000 users. So it's not bad for an IT company in a country that had zero, like a lot of internet in the house, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that I just didn't get the right angel investor. I didn't think about it. I just was kind of concentrating on growth. And the reason why I left it was I needed to go back to finding a stable job because I was getting married and we were going to have a kid. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to let it go. But I could have saw it was big. What's funny, one of the competitors that launched at the same time, but they did it properly. It was a local company, Chinese company. So of course, they already had all their connection investors set. So they're like exploded, you know. But it's always a learning experience. After that, I started working for an events company, or with a friend, we started one. So we were doing like parties. We were doing from getting local DJs. We were bringing comedians out to Shanghai to do stand-up comedy. Some of my friends were doing some of the biggest fashion shows you can think of at that time. So they were hosting stuff for like CK, Dior, you know, Louis Vuitton. So we were always like there at the fashion shows. So we had fun.
So you had a lot of access to cool stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty
That's what
cool.
we're doing.
Yeah, a lot of alcohol too. So that wasn't very good.
Or fun, right? At the
Yeah.
time.
And then I also dabbled in opening a pub. So we opened kind of a restaurant, playing pool. We also had a small room that we had stand-up comedy that we brought in. So that's pretty much
Did you do
about it.
stand-up comedy too?
No, I was a little bit of the host,
Alright.
but that's about it. I just had to say 1 or 2 jokes.
But you know, see, I think that all helps out, and I know you were saying that like, oh, I'm wasting money, the company's money. But in reality, it's, you know, I worked at a few Asian markets that a friend of mine owns, and the first generation is, you know, heavily traditional, buying heavily traditional Asian products, and then second generation a little bit less, and now we're starting to get into the third or fourth generation. So I think everything that you're doing is going to benefit the company huge over time. And the benefit of it for you guys too is that you lived here and you moved over there and you've been in both places, so you could get an idea of, you know, how they think or they shop, you know, and the way Americans think. So you have the best of both worlds. So I think, you know, over time, everything that you're doing is gonna like pay off big time. But you gotta invest just like anything else, right? You gotta put in the time, the money first, and then reap the benefits afterwards.
Yeah, true. I think the key too is like what you said. It's about experience, and then you can't connect the dots looking forward. You know, you have to see all the different things that you did, kind of accumulate together to be able to do what's successful now. And if you don't try, I think that's the good thing that I was kind of benefit from the family, is that they allowed me to go out and just try whatever, you know. And then later on, I got a phone call saying, "Okay, you're done trying.
Come back. We need you, all right. So how long were you over there?
11 years.
11 years. And what are some of the things you see as like the difference, you know, like between the American culture and the Asian culture?
I think because they were kind of like classified as third world, that they had a hunger to really like work hard, you know, and then coming back. Unfortunately, not to say anything bad, I love America, but you don't see that kind of hunger nowadays. You know, people are just kind of satisfied with what they are. Like they complain a lot, but they don't really do anything to get out of that home. You know, like you see people who say, oh, you know, I really want to buy something simple. Like, let's say a car, like a new car, and the lease is like $300. But then you see them buying Starbucks every day. You know, it's like little sacrifices that could change. You know, and then in China, what you saw was they like same thing with my parents when they came. They didn't spend on anything. Right? We ate at home every day. Like McDonald's was like a luxury. You know, like we got McDonald's once a year. It was pretty good already. I don't remember eating it even once a month.
Well, let's talk about that. Some of the sacrifices. So, and I agree with you. Like, you know, I work with a lot of people, and they want to achieve high goals. And when I talk to them, like, I want to achieve this, I want to do this, but their words and their actions hardly ever match.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some of the sacrifices you guys have had to do to get where you guys are at now?
Well, for myself, not too much. But for my parents, because we kind of grew up seeing it. So that was kind of lifestyle. We didn't think twice, you know. What we had was what we had. We didn't go out to dinner. We bought stuff, and I made sandwiches to go to high school. I walked to school, things like that, you know. It's just small sacrifices. Coming here to help out with the family, knowing that I'll be back. I think that's the little sacrifices that my parents appreciate. But they also know that we have my sister and we want a desire to like make the company even better, you know. So they're kind of allowing us to do that. There's a lot of stuff that failed, products that I brought in that failed, but in the end you have to keep trying, because if you don't try, then it's always going to be the same thing. Sooner or later, one of the products, you kind of learn from the past of the failures, and one of them should do well.
You know, one of the things about yourself too that I notice is like a lot of people come with ideas and like, I want to try this, I want to do this. You actually try a lot of your ideas. You know, do you fear failure, or it's just like, how do you see things?
No, I don't even think about failure, because when I think of an idea, I think there's a lot of success to come by it. Like, I don't even think what's the next step, like, oh, how's it going to fail? I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to think, how can I make it succeed? And then if it doesn't work, a lot of people in the like entrepreneurship, they talk about the word pivot. You know what I mean? So you have to continue to pivot. Like, you try something and then somebody complains, like, oh, your packaging's wrong. Oh, okay, why is it wrong? And then you kind of decide by yourself, it's that big of an issue. And then you kind of like pivot, and continue to do. There's products like Rise Buddy, right? This one didn't work because of the small packaging, so we pivoted and made bigger bags, you know. So things like that, you have to continue to think about how you can improve it, or what is the issue with it. You know?
Yeah, and that's good. I've never heard anyone, like I haven't heard anyone say pivot. You know, and that's a good way of seeing it, because I used to think it was the strongest survives. Like, I used to hear that and be like, it's whoever's the strongest that survives. But in reality, it's not. It's whoever could adapt the best is who survives. You know, like those little changes that you're talking about.
Yeah, one thing about the food industry too, it's exactly like that cartoon where he's like digging, and then he gives up right before they hit the goal. It's not that, like I always say, it's not that your product's good. This food environments is really tough, and you know it as well. It's so hard because people have good brands, but the problems you face, it's like crazy because you can't find the distributors, and then the supermarkets, like they tell you to find a distributor, the distributor tells you to find 100 supermarkets, and you're like juggling. It's like a chicken and egg. It's like the worst case scenario. So I don't want people, like consumers who listen to this, to think that the brand was bad or the product was bad. It's just this environment, because there's so many good products out there that I think distributors and both retailers, they get a little bit jaded, you know, especially with American supermarkets, the buyers. One thing is they get flooded so much with products, but one thing that I realized too, a lot of the buyers, they don't travel, you know, like they're buying like Thai products, they're buying like international products, or they're buying, let's say the supermarkets in the New England area and it's products from California. They don't even come out here, so they don't know what's happening. So they kind of depend a lot on their partnerships or relationships with people that they already know, brokers that they already know, to recommend products. So then if that person that has a relationship recommended, they're more likely to take it. But it's just trying to find those key people, which is hard. So if I walked in, knocked on their door, even if I had like the best product, like let's say it was like coconut water back in the days, you know what I mean? They would have probably said no. You know, so things like that. So I just want people to know, like, don't give up. You know, if you have a good product, continue, ask the right questions, you know, listen to feedback, and then hopefully you'll be on the shelves.
And you know, that's true. I was just talking to a buyer of a big market, like really popular market, and a particular buyer is going to go to Expo West, and I'm like, are you going to go to Expo East? And they're like, no, we're not going. I'm like, well, then you should join us and come. I'm going to go out there because, I mean, I want to know everything. So I've traveled with you, and I try to go to different states and different types of events, and sometimes it's not even food related, just so that I can learn more. Because, like you said, like, what if there's something amazing in the East Coast that could be brought here, West Coast, or simply from Asia, you know, coming this way? So I would agree with you that a lot of them don't leave, like, they're regional, and then are probably, you know, someone else is telling them, yeah, this is good, versus them actually going into it and looking into it.
I remember we went to visit one bar in San Diego. You guys know, like, bubble tea, right? Like boba?
Yeah.
You know?
I haven't heard of
You haven't heard?
He's from Iowa, so we're gonna have to take him and get some
Okay,
boba.
we're gonna go and get some boba.
Yeah.
So the same case scenario. It's like we introduced it. She's like, I've never heard it. I'm like, oh my god, you're like in San Diego.
He's probably from Iowa, though.
So it's things like that. I think, like, it's not surprising because you can't know everything, of course. But as a buyer, you should know everything. That's what surprised me, you know, because you're not just a consumer and like, I love just eating Japanese or something like that, right? You're a buyer for that Asian category. You should know everything about every Asian.
Yeah, you know, even like for me, you know, I work with a lot of different brands, and there's times where it's like, it's not something that I would drink or eat, but I look at it, is someone going to consume it? Is that category growing, you know? And a lot of buyers, decision makers are based it upon what they feel versus like, is it going to sell? Is this something that people are looking for? Or, I mean, one time I went to Vegas and I talked to the buyer of a big hotel, and I presented a new alcohol drink to them that no one else had. And when I was talking to the buyer's like, well, we don't want to bring in a new product because people only like what we already sell.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, you're the buyer of a major hotel. Like, don't you want something that no one else has? It's like saying, I'm going to have the same show at my hotel that the other hotel has. Like, don't you want a different show? Or don't you want a different type of restaurant? Why would you want what everybody already wants? Don't you want to create a new ambience, you know, something different? And that kind of changed my mentality, too, when that happened. Because it's like, man, someone that's at a high level for a huge casino was thinking the same way a liquor store thinks. And I'm like, man, you know, it's, you know, it doesn't matter where they're at. Like, people just the way they think sometimes.
Yeah, I think when you're in that position, I could see where you just get lazy, you know what I mean? Because everyone's knocking on your door, you just assume that everyone's going to bring things to you. So I think it's not their fault, but I think they just kind of forgot their ways. I'm sure it's just like when they first started, they were like really gung-ho, like, oh, I have to learn everything, I have to travel, I have to like get all these meetings, you know, but now they're just kind of like, oh, everything's not broken. So
Yeah. And you guys are a little bit different because you guys have your own distribution company, but you guys also have some products that are kind of yours. But let's talk about distribution. So how many items do you guys carry? How many different brands do you guys kind of carry in ballpark?
oh man, probably like 100 brands.
And then SKUs, because all of them have multiple.
Yeah, about 2,500.
How do you guys decide what to bring in and what not to bring in?
I think that's, well, a majority of our product is products that are already moving, that both my parents have already bought in. So those are kind of just sustainable products.
Yeah.
And it's kind of filling in, I guess, the demand of the retailers. But we're always trying to find new products, like you said, to introduce to them. And it's not easy as well because, unfortunately, shelf space is always an issue with a lot of these supermarkets. So even if they think the product is good, it's kind of hard. Who are they going to kick out, you know? So I think that's one thing. If you're starting a product, keep that in mind. You know, no matter how good your product is, you have to remove something. And it's all a timing game too. Like a lot of the big retailers, they have scheduled, like let's say in January they're reviewing chips, you know what I mean? So if you go knocking on the door in February, you gotta wait 11 more months until they present again. So you have to really buckle in and wait for that.
But the
time.
Asian markets are a little bit different though, right? Like saying on your side, because that's the biggest bulk of your business. I mean, some of them have schematics and all this stuff. They're starting to become more Americanized in that way. But there's a lot of them that they just kind of bring in stuff. I don't know. Am I wrong or?
Oh yeah, you're correct. You're correct. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent.
No,
but
you went more towards the product, but we'll get to that. But
yeah.
I want, because you guys deal. What is your percentage of Asian markets? Like 95%, 99% of your business is Asian markets,
correct,
right?
still.
So like, I think they think differently, and they're starting to become more Americanized because, like I said, second and third generation, fourth generation. So they're changing, but a lot of them are still heavily depending on first generation. I would say the majority of their sales are first generations, and so when they bring in products, it's not the same. Like they don't do category reviews and all these things. So is it hard to get in new products to Asian markets like the way you guys do business?
It depends. Like a lot of our salespeople would do introduce new products, and some do take it. But the hardest thing about the Asian supermarkets is that a lot of them are kind of like mom and pop supermarkets. So they're kind of you have to spend a little bit more time to introduce your product. Go in there. There's not a lot of chains for Asian supermarkets here in the United States. So it takes a lot of effort, and I think the hardest part is if you want to get into 50 stores, you're actually talking to 50 owners. But like you said, their buying is a lot better because they're not scheduled. You can walk in anytime, present your product, and they can take it just like that.
What I've found for me is being non-Asian, working with non-Asian companies, they're not as receptive as when they work with you guys that are an Asian company or other Asian companies. Do you see the same thing, or is that something that I'm just seeing?
No, it's true because I've tried to sell to Hispanic supermarkets.
So you see it the other way around.
Yeah. So it's not as easy, but even though it's kind of cool because I think, like I said, it's not because of ethnicity. I think it's because you don't have that relationship yet. They don't know
you guys
who
have been dealing like.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is what I've seen too. Is in the Asian distribution side of it, there's like a few companies that kind of you guys are all kind of the same and sell different products. So they're just used to buying from you guys because. I think your father and their father kind of all grew up almost the same time, so there's that relationship, and it's like I trust them, I know the father or whatever it is. So that's what I see. Is that true or?
Oh yeah, of course there has to be because relationships is the most important. I think in any kind of supermarkets or any kind of business, relationship still trumps good products or good pricing.
Well, it can. Relationships matter, of course, but. You got to be open to new products, and like we're open and you're open. Like I said, because it's the same thing. You're the next generation, so your mindset's different. You see different things. Is it and when I see your guys' business too, it's a little bit different too because you guys get the majority of your products from overseas, right?
Oh yeah, all of it.
And then what I've noticed too is when you guys order, it's like you don't order like give me half a pallet, give me 10 cases. Like you guys got to order containers because it comes from way over there and. It can't just be like a little bit. It just doesn't make sense shipping it.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part because there is like a lot of lead time, like 3 to 4 weeks to ship over here. And we try to get the trend, but it's really difficult because there'll be some products that it was selling really good. For instance, like coconut milk, and then we'll order a little bit extra, and then we don't sell anything, or not sell anything, but we sell like really low volume, and then later on we'll pick up just because, like you mentioned, there's a lot of Asian distributors that are also taking the same product, so they kind of move around whoever has specials and things like that. But it's okay. The market is so big that we're all successful. So even though we're like competitors, but it's kind of friendly competition. We're not going to like gouge each other because the good thing, like what you mentioned about relationship, is that actually all of them kind of all the owners kind of built their company around the same time. So now it's all the second generation.
Yeah.
So I kind of know all the sons and daughters of the other company. And even though we compete, but no one ever like goes out to like make sure that you.
It wouldn't make sense for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, it'll hurt everybody's business, and the prices will drop, and it just no one benefits from that.
Correct. So everyone's pretty decent. Like we all talk about like, hey, what's going on? So that's kind of.
Yeah, like you'll have one beer and they have another beer. I mean, it's still like Asian, but it's a different brand. So that way it's like, okay, I'm selling this one. Yeah, and it's hard because I had my own distribution company and I work with a lot of different distribution companies, but they're more like American. And I know when I was a distributor, it's like, well, just give me 10 cases or give me a pallet or give me 2 pallets, like nothing too crazy. And that was hard to manage too, just because seasonality or just, like this category is hot, like you're saying coconut water's hot, and then it just kind of dies down. So I could see that being like very difficult for you guys to kind of, the inventory flow of it, especially with, having to wait for it. So
Yeah, it's like sometimes when if it's like seasonal, sometimes we buy so much and our warehouse like gets packed like during like November, December during the holidays, getting ready for New Year's and Chinese New Year's and stuff like that. And then now it's kind of like it settles down, so it comes in waves for inventory.
So when you guys bring in new product, do you guys take out old product, or do you guys just add new product to what you guys are taking?
Oh no, we keep adding.
How do you determine when a product's like, as a distributor, like I don't want to carry that no more? Like, how long do you give it?
Probably a year. Yeah. We give it a year. We test it out, and then if there's no reorders, there's a lot of ways that you can get the product out. One way, the easiest way, is you give out free cases. You know, so at least it's they put it on the shelves. Another way is just deep discount, buy one get one. You know, just so it gets it out there. And then if after a couple months you don't see reorder, then we know the product's probably not that great. We try to get feedback from the vendor. Hey, how's it going? Or if do you want to do a reorder? You know, but you kind of have a good idea because to share the truth, everything sells. Because if we're importing it, probably in the whole country, it probably does well. But the biggest issue is like trying to control the expectation of the vendor because they're like, oh, we're like the number one in Bangkok, we're the number one in Shanghai. It's like nobody knows your brand, you know what I mean? So
No,
that's the hardest thing too.
I mean, we went to, so me and Tim went to Thailand together, and the reason we went is because we wanted to help expand Thai business in American and Hispanic markets. And I remember meeting with a few brands like on one-on-ones where we're kind of consulting them. And I'm not going to mention the brand, but this one particular brand's like, well, we're the number one in Cambodia, and we're selling containers in Cambodia. And I'm like, well, we're not in Cambodia, you know, like that's a whole different market, you know, like people just think differently. But it's true what you say, even, you know, with the brands we work, maintaining an expectation, it's difficult because people only see the end results of brands. They don't see how hard it's been or the subtle changes of pivoting, like you said, you know, like part of the problem that I see with the Asian products is just that they're too Asian sometimes and it scares people off.
Mm-hmm.
But they're great products, you know, when you taste them, like you try them, like, man, these could be amazing products if they just pivot a little bit and maybe change the size or maybe change the flavor or just maybe change the name, you know, like labeling and stuff like that. And I remember talking to all these brands and they just didn't want to pivot. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing great in Europe and yeah, you're doing great in Asia, but there's a whole other market and we consume a lot. Like, there's so much opportunity.
I think the hard part is like when you ask them to pivot, they have to understand it and invest themselves. Because as an importer, you're not going to be like, hey, you should change the size, you know, because I know there's minimum order quantities, you know, MOQs. So we understand that they also have a cost. But hopefully what we try to do when we talk to them is they kind of realize like, hey, these two guys actually know what they're talking about.
I think we just have to prove it with something and then people will believe, but it's hard because just the conception of people, it's like they don't understand it. And even the American market too, like if you don't bring it the right way, the right package and all that stuff, they're not buying it either because it's like they don't believe in it either.
Yeah, some of the big brands that we work with from Thailand, they actually visit once a year. And there's companies that I think we've been importing the product for decades and they never visit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy.
Yeah, they told me.
I know that they trust you,
different.
but still they need to come and kind of see for themselves. You know, because if you request, like you ask them to do this, they won't understand it.
Yeah, like it's the same thing we're saying with American buyers that they're not going around. Well, with the Asian companies, they're not coming out either. They're just probably like, oh wow, it sells well in my country, or you know, someone told me it's going to sell well without really coming out here and like, well, let me see what the market's saying and how can we pivot it so that we can be successful out this way. But that's what we, you know, like, it was great traveling with you when we did that, and I want to continue to do that because, like I said, there is a lot of great products throughout Asia that I feel like could do really well here, and vice versa too. You know, there's products that are made here that I feel could do well over there if it's done the right way.
Yeah, one thing that we kind of changed, like what you were mentioning about finding new products. A lot of products, even for yourself, it's kind of like we brought in a pallet, remember? Or we brought in a container. I think that's one thing that I kind of was too eager about. So recently what we did was we found a couple brands with good products, and what we told them is that this is going to be a long process. And so if they were willing to work with us, what we did was we just got samples and we started to like send samples to a lot of the bigger retailers. So we said we're not going to bring it in until we get an order, because then that kind of guarantees that we're not on the hook for bringing merchandise, and then you're like, hey, you brought in a container, how's it going? Oh, we threw it away. You know, so it's things like that. So that's kind of like what we decided to do last year, and it's been quite successful. We did put in a lot of money for traveling to visit buyers and everything like that, but overall, we've got good response. So that's where we'll get a couple POs this year.
Yeah, you actually traveled throughout the U.S. I remember you traveled throughout the U.S. meeting a lot of these stores. How did that go, and what were you trying to look at?
Oh, when I first came back, I kind of wanted to see what kind of customers that we were selling to. So every summer, I would do like this huge road trip. So the first summer, I did kind of like within like Seattle, Oregon area, and then I drove all the way through California as well, from south all the way to Sacramento. I did another big one all through Texas. I put on like 5,000 miles on a rental car. That was crazy. And I felt bad too, because when I picked it up, it was like 8 miles.
So 5,008 miles.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then I felt bad after 3,000 miles. I called them and like, do you want me to change the oil? And they're like, no, it's okay.
Change the oil.
Yeah.
So I got fish oil.
And then I did a big one around, Detroit, Chicago, went up to Minnesota, I went like Green Bay, everywhere like that. I did another one around Denver, the middle area, and then another summer I did Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama and stuff. That was pretty cool. So I drove through the whole Florida, and that was pretty nice.
Yeah, and you've also traveled through all the Asian countries too, right? Just kind of looking at brands or probably meeting with some of the suppliers and all that stuff as well.
Oh yeah, there's always food shows everywhere. I think that's one recommendation. Even if you don't get a chance to travel to the country, at least go to the restaurants, try their cuisine. I truly believe that if for tourism, a lot of the countries that I meet, they want to like promote tourism, right? I'm like, you don't have enough restaurants here, and then they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, how do you expect people to want to go to Cambodia or something, or Myanmar or Burma or Malaysia if they've never tried the food? Like, no one's going to wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to Malaysia and never have like laksa, you know? So I kind of feel like I just had a meeting 2 weeks ago with the Malaysian council. I'm like, you got to open more restaurants. You know, it doesn't make sense. Like, how do you expect to promote tourism when I don't even know where there's a Malaysian restaurant? You know?
Yeah, and I know traveling with you, you're always making me try funky stuff, and I'm like super picky, and you're like, here, just try this, and I'm like, what is it? And we don't even know what it is. I'm like, when I went with you to Thailand, I have no idea what I ate. Like, you're like, here, you gotta try this. All right, I gotta try it. So I mean, I've been trying to open up more and try stuff, but it's just not something I'm used to. But that, yeah, on that side, you know, like I was saying, you guys are pretty different because you have the distribution and all that side. But you guys also have products like Rice Buddy, right? That, you know, tell us a little bit about Rice Buddy and how it started, and you know what's your guys' involvement with it.
So this was kind of like my first product that I kind of brought in for the mainstream. It's my uncle's company. He does really well. It's called White Faith. They do like 50 containers to Australia a year. So I was like, oh, it's so easy. If Australia is buying it, man, I'm going to sell like 500 containers to the U.S.
Yeah.
But it's been a uphill battle because the rice chip industry in Australia is really developed.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I didn't realize. So in the snack market in the U.S., it's still heavily potato and corn, you know. And then when you talk about rice snack, it's always like those bland rice cakes, you know.
Yeah.
So whenever I present it or try to get a meeting, they're like, oh, rice snacks. So they're associated with something different,
Yeah.
rather than thinking it's a like really tasty chip made with rice. You know, so if you look in the market now, there's a lot of snacks out there, but no one really focuses on, hey, we're made from rice, you know. Like they're like, oh yeah, it's gluten free and things like that.
Yeah.
But even though a lot of it's rice based, like even ours is gluten free, there's not a very good, I guess, feeling when you're talking about rice snacks. You know, like, oh man, it's not that good. You know, it's your grandpa snack.
Yeah, the perception's just not there yet. And I've worked with you and done events and demos and all that stuff. And I know people really like it. Like, we were just at the Oscars this weekend, and we donated some, and I was giving it, and people love it. Like, it's just, people don't know what it is. They got a wrong perception of it. And then, like I tell everybody, I go, like, you know, here in California and the U.S., Frito-Lay, like, dominates the market. and even them, you know, they even they don't succeed with all their flavors. They're always coming out with new flavors, and you know, a company that's that established, that everybody knows the name of the brand, they still don't make it. So it's very difficult. So tell us a little bit some of the challenges that you've seen when it comes to like creating your own brand.
I think the key. Oh, okay. Well, you need to get a lot of feedback before you launch. So we did kind of like surveys. We did a lot of shows with just foil bags, trying to get feedback on the taste and things like that. So we finally settled on some of the mainstream flavors. But the funny thing is that when we launched the flavors, everyone's like, "Oh, you got to do sriracha," But they got to realize like when you make that kind of, what is it like? Suggestion for new flavors, it's because they've seen Lay's, they've seen Doritos that have been so established. So when they launch new flavors, it's easy, right? They're like, oh, it's a new flavor, like wasabi flavor, whatever. But when you start as a new brand, you have to still start with like the core. They don't think that, oh, okay. They just think like, what is the established brands do? You should do it, because if you did it, it would explode. But it's not true. The other part that was really difficult, as I mentioned, is like we couldn't get a distributor, we couldn't get meetings. People liked it, but in the end, they were kind of like, oh, what are we going to remove? Because they have, I guess it's called planogram, so they have to actually plan like how many shelf space you have, how many facings you have. So it's not as easy as what people think when they launch. They're like, oh, I have something good. And the thing that we kind of screwed up on too is that we didn't figure out what is our competitors, who are we going to go after, like what product people should switch out, or what is our price point, things like that. We're just kind of like, okay, our product's good. We kind of did do research on the price point, and we knew 99 cents was a good target. But then as we kind of presented to the buyers, they always give us feedback about what was the issue. Like for this, the packaging was too small. So 99 cents for this small size looked different than a Lay's that's 99 cents that was a bigger bag. But when you compare the weight, our weight was double. So those are the kind of issues that we have. We're like, oh, dude, you didn't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I did a demo.
That's kind of crazy.
I did a demo one time at this market that did really well with chips, and I was sampling, and people really liked it, and I sold a good amount. But there was Lay's chips like at half the price. So even though I sold a good amount, the Lay's sold double because people already knew it, and the price was less. And then the manager of the store is like, well, you did a terrible job. But it's like, well, like it's half the price. People know it. I actually did a real good job because, these are quality chips. And really, as a parent, right, you got to be feeding your kids something healthier. But a lot of people, they're just not there yet, when it comes to being healthier.
I think a lot of this, because we wanted to create this for the mainstream market, I think one thing is that the mainstream market hasn't been, back when we launched it probably 4 years ago, wasn't really receptive towards it. And when we introduced it to some of the natural grocers, they kind of didn't like the packaging as well, because it didn't fit their concept of like clean and natural. We wanted to make it targeting kids where it's like, okay, here's something fun, like Cheetos or something like that, but it's going to be healthy. So we're kind of in the middle between like being junk food and kind of like too high end, like snack food, like organic and things like that. We're kind of in the middle, and I think that's where we also kind of messed up. So maybe we didn't do as much research, but when you start, you kind of don't know.
No, you gotta
so
find
we're
out.
stumbling it around. You're stumbling around. So
yeah, because like I said, they're really good, and like you said, they were more intended for kids, right? Like that's like the main, because you have kind of a kid on there and everything, and you want the kids to eat healthier, but the parents are still the ones buying it. And you would think, hey, let me buy something healthier for my kids versus let me buy them something that's not as healthy, even though it's cheaper. But it is, majority still don't think that way.
yeah, a lot. There's only a few products that if you put it on the shelves, like let's say take example kombucha, right? The next kombucha can come out and it'll sell because people kind of recognize it already.
Well, let's talk about that because, and you're right now, but it wasn't like that 10, 15 years ago when kombucha came out. Now because, GT's is probably the one that most people know and is probably the pioneer of that category. Build that category, and now when the other ones come out, it's a little bit easier because they build a category.
Just like what cold press as well.
Yeah, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a
You know,
little easier.
someone has like coconut water. Like, you know, someone had to break it. Like, okay, for instance, Red Bull. You guys were one of the first people to sell Red Bull, right? You know.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that it was
You have it
produced
here,
in
don't you?
Thailand. The original one?
Yeah. It's right there.
Oh yeah, the original.
See that one and then that other one. So, I mean, energy drinks were actually originated in Asia,
Yeah.
and Red Bull was actually originated in Thailand.
Yeah, correct.
And so when it first came out here, this is kind of what it looked like. You know, they were in glass bottles. The formulation was different too. It was more, you know,
Oh, it was non-carbonated.
non-carbonated, so
Yeah.
it was like thicker. You know, so it's a whole different palette than what the American was thinking. And when they were selling it over there was other, you know, types of energy drinks in all Asia and Thailand, but they were super expensive because it was just for like the upper class. But these guys were the first ones that were like, you know what, let's make it for the working class, so the price was reasonable and people were drinking it. So Dietrich Massachusetts, when he went over there to Thailand, was like, man, like this is gonna sell like crazy in America, you know, like. But he realized that he had to change the packaging. You know, they made it into a can, they added carbonation, and like you said, he made that pivot. You know, and that's, I mean, that's the way I look at it. Like everything that's here and all these products, like if they made the right pivot, they could be the next Red Bull because that's how good some of these brands are.
Yeah.
And even Rice Buddies, like it's an amazing product. Like I would say 9 out of 10 people that I give it to like it. But that's pretty high. I've worked with a lot of products where it's the ratio is way less. It's just awareness is one, and that's difficult. And then, you know, just getting people to understand like why they should eat it. You know, like when I first saw Red Bull here in the United States, like they didn't understand the concept of energy drinks. It wasn't even what's Red Bull, what's an energy drink. You know, and that, I feel like a lot of that's the same with a lot of these categories. You know, kombucha when it first came out, coconut water when it first came out, and then you guys are trying to do something different with the chips. They're amazing chips. It's just finding that right pivot that's gonna make it like, okay, yeah, let's take it to the next level.
True. But there's a lot of snacks coming out now targeting kids' health, where it's kind of like alternative to junk food. So the market's going to continue to develop there. So we're there.
Yeah, we're seeing it. You know, like when I first started in the industry, it was predominantly like your Ralph's, Vons, you know, more your Americanized, traditional type stores. And now in like the LA market, Orange County market, all that stuff, we're seeing more healthier markets. You know, there's more Whole Foods now. There's more Mother's Markets, Lassen's, all these, you know, higher end, healthier type of. So it's going there, but the mainstream is still, you know, heavily not into healthy.
Well, one good thing is online. So the online industry kind of helps a lot of small businesses out. So we've done pretty good on online. I think that's one thing. If you launch a brand, don't just concentrate on. We had a seminar that was hosted by Walmart. And he's like, it's funny how like everyone concentrates on the store and retail. They keep presenting, and he's like, but they don't think that Walmart.com can take their product before the store. So that's one recommendation. Go out there to find all the .coms for all the supermarkets and present to them because they're different buyers. You know, so that's one thing that we've been doing. And one store like Albertson.com, they just, it's a funny thing, I thought they were, but they just launched about a year ago. So we're on there too. So it's things like that, like try to think outside the box, you know. Try to visit stores. You don't need to just go to the buyers. You can actually go to the store managers and present and see there's an opportunity. So just keep grinding.
Yeah, I mean, e-commerce is growing at a crazy rate, and you're going to see that more and more important. You know, obviously Amazon started it, but Walmart and these other ones realize, like, man, if we don't get on board with this, they're going to take all our business, so we need to do the e-commerce as well.
Yeah, it's a good way to introduce your product because it is a little bit slower to get into like traditional brick and mortar, but e-commerce is still probably like only 3 to 5% of the retail market still. That's surprising. I thought it would be a lot more. So imagine that, like whatever you hear about how Amazon or eBay or all those guys are doing, it's like 95% is still walking to supermarkets. So that's still pretty amazing to me. And I don't think things are going to change that much. I think that's why Amazon kind of went into retail with Whole Foods as well, because they knew that without that balance, it's hard for them to continue doing. introduce new products. And we did, we introduced the new product to Whole Foods. And then we told them that, oh yeah, we're like doing pretty well on Amazon. And the buyer's like, oh, we'll check on that.
Yeah, like how I said that. Bought some more stuff before I came in here. What else, like as far as like social media as well? You know, what works, what doesn't work, or what are you seeing?
Oh yeah, I think social media is pretty important, but you have to be prepared as a brand. I don't think because we're still pretty traditional, small business Asian, that we didn't invest a lot into social media. A lot of the social media is like what we did for our own brands, you know, for your own company. So it was kind of hard, you know, trying to get out there, trying to keep up with photos and take pictures and things like that. So there's a lot of cool platforms out there that help small businesses to kind of usher their way through this whole like minefield of social media. But it's something that you really need to build, because without that, you kind of lose the reach of people. And I think a lot of buyers also use social media to see how many followers you have, or you know, because in the end, it has to show that there's like a demand. And I remember when we first started too, we started social media, and the buyer actually rejected us because we only had 500 followers. It didn't surprise me, but it also kind of threw me off as well,
Yeah.
you know, because you were kind of like, oh, kind of makes sense. Okay, I'll be back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing you need to do. You have to have a lot of do a lot of demos on site, but I think don't overspend. Don't do too many events that are like big, you know. Like you have to really think, like, if you do the event, is there a location that they can buy? So we're kind of like the same thing, the chicken and egg. We do a lot of shows. We gave samples to 100,000 people, and we got really good feedback. But then it's hard, because if you're not on the shelf, you're not in their face, you know. So we've had a lot of people go to Amazon and buy, but in the end, it's kind of like if they don't continue to see it, they forget. You know, so you do have to kind of get on the shelf sooner or later.
I mean, and even then, there's no guarantees, because I've been, you know, working with you guys and Rice Buddy kind of like since it launched over here, and I remember a particular market where you got it in, and we got displays and did all these demos, and it actually sold really well. But when I would go check on the store, they had it in the back room. It wasn't on the sales floor, you know, and it's like the buyer only sees the results that are going through the register. They're not knowing that it's probably been in the back room for like a week. And then even when we got it going and we were seeing the sales continue to grow, it didn't have a home. It didn't have an actual place on the set, so he discontinued it. Even though we were selling like hundreds of units every time we were there doing demos. And, you know, that's the whole thing, like, because I work with a lot of brands, and there's just no guarantees. Even when you're doing well, sometimes they still pull you out.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I think one thing that we realized too doing this is like you have to be really prepared. There's a lot of investment that goes into hard work. Like even if you get into the distributor, they might have salespeople, but you still have to do a lot of the sales yourself. Because you gotta imagine, like even for our company, we have salespeople that introduces new products, but they don't really push it, because if you have so many products, you can't really take the time. So if you're gonna be like the brand owner, or you have a team, go out there to support the distributor. Make the sales for your distributor. It sounds weird, but that's the realistic point of view that you have to realize. Like if you're gonna go into this business, there's no golden goose egg. Even if you get into 10 distributors and you sit on your ass, you could have zero sales, and you're going to be complaining to distributors, but actually it's not their fault, it's your fault. If you think about it, they're just distributors. They're just going to take orders and deliver for you. So you have to be ready to actually make those calls. They can introduce you to the buyers, like we'll introduce you to, like, we have brands, right? I just emailed you like an Excel of all the stores, because we really can't do it. You know, so we told the brands to, hey, go out and open the customers. You know, you have to do it. It's your brand. You know what I mean? So a lot of brands, they fail because they're like, oh, I got into distributors, and they start like counting the money when they haven't even sold a pallet. You know, so that's one thing that is kind of like my recommendation to people who start branding. You have to continue to go out there, learn what's the issue. Like what you said, that supermarket didn't put out our product, or you know, it was in the back shelf, or whatever the reason is. You have to continue to keep going out. You have to, like, even if you're a successful business, as an owner, you have to continue to go out to the small little mom and pop to figure out, if you start sitting, somebody else is going to surpass you.
Yeah, I mean, it's for every brand. It's the same thing, and and you start getting to these distributors. The bigger the distributor is, the less attention you're going to get because it's on the distribution side. It's like, well, how can I pay more attention to this product and that product? It's and then as a salesperson, the way they think, and this is what I tell everybody, they're going to sell what already sells because a lot of them are just order takers, and they're going to sell if you pay them more to sell that particular item, but that. For that moment, it'll be good. Like, okay, they're going to push. Well, after that moment, they're going to push the next item that pays them the most. And that's why, like our company, that's where we started it because we saw that. Like, there's a lot of distribution companies, but there's very few sales teams.
Yeah, correct.
And you need kind of all of it. So for yourself, being on both sides of it, like you are a distributor, you guys have been a distributor, you guys represent a brand and have a brand. How do you see business? Has it changed your perception and the way you think of business, versus how you were before you had your brand?
I think it's something that you learn. Like, I'm not surprised. It's something that I didn't know. And after you learn, you're kind of like, oh, I can't believe it's like that. Not really. It's kind of like, oh, okay, I see how it is. Okay, let's just figure out how we can do it then. Just like what I mentioned about trying to bring in products. Like, we'll bring in a pallet and say, before we used to bring in a pallet of product and be like, hey, let's try it. Now we're like, there's no more trying. We have to get the sales before we even bring in the product. Because it's kind of just the way it is. Because if we can't sell it, then why even bring in 10 cases? So we just have to manage the expectation. I think that's a good thing of all our failures in the past. So now what we're trying to do is we're like, especially with the new Rice Buddy or some of the watermelon juice that we're bringing in, we're bringing Manuka honey, we're bringing frozen food. We just got, and then as we're presenting and they say no to us on the product, we always ask, like, are you looking for anything? And so recently some of the buyers actually reply back, be like, hey, we're looking for this now. And then we'll go and look for it, and then now we're going to be submitting it into a bid. So it's kind of working out the way the model is, but unfortunately there's going to be a lot of new entrepreneurs that have to create the brand first and then go out and find a distributor. They don't have time to actually go talk to the buyer if this is the right product. They actually have to create 100,000 units, and be ready for the order. So we see a lot of products getting thrown away, but that's just the beast of being a brand.
Yeah, I mean, with buyers, right? Talking to buyers, they're like, well, what distributor are you with, right? And then you go to the distributor and they're like, well, what accounts are you with? Like you're saying the chicken and the egg, and it's like, well, I need you as a distributor so I can get into the store. Yeah. And I need, and the distributor's like, well, I need you to get stores so that I can be your distributor, and it's like, well, what comes first, and I've seen it with you when we're talking to buyers or we're talking to distributors, them telling you that, and it's like, well, that's why we're here. We need you to make a commitment so we can get the other one to make a commitment. And, being a distributor and all that side too, like, I understand it because it's like, well, we've got so many items coming in, I don't want to spend my money and have it sit there unless I go and sell it. And then even the stores, when you start talking to the buyers, like, you have to commit to demos, ad fees. Like, you're not even really making money until, like, probably, like, way down the road, because after you pay the ad fees, slotting fees, demos, it's like, all you've been doing is spending money.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a new brand, so you're never going to sell that many units to cover that cost. But I think overall you have to pick at least one small retailer, like 8, 10 chains, and say, okay, I'm going to put all my energy into this. Because if you do well there, then you kind of have like the data to go to the next place. So that's something that I would recommend now, learning that, okay, pick one good supermarket. Whatever they're asking, just pay, because we've done so much over the last 3 years that if we had done that from the beginning, we would be in a different position now.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at a lot of these brands that are successful, they've gone through all that. They just stuck through it. They believed in what they were doing, and they finally started getting reception because the product was good. So you being, representing your brand and all that stuff, if you were consulting someone that's starting their own brand, what would you tell them to be realistic expectations of when they should actually start making money? How long? Should it be a year? Should it be 2 years? Should it be 3 years? when should they actually start looking to be like, okay, now my product is starting to make a profit?
I think when you first start, you really have to visit all the retailers and really decide who's your competitor and see what's out there. Like, do a little bit more research than coming up with new product and trying to sell it. And a lot of the brands, I think they get a lot of investment too. I'm not sure how they did it, but lucky for me, I kind of have this to fall back on. I see a lot of brands when we do the food shows. I don't even know how they get all that money because their booths are so nice, you know. And I don't know what's the history, but it seems like when they first launched, they already have this money, you know, like how did they do it, you know? But if you don't have that, try to start small, you know, do a lot of farmers market, do a lot of sweat, introduce it to product. You can find companies like independent distributors to start there, present your product, your concept, you know, maybe try it out with your family and friends. But a lot of times too, when you do these, everyone's going to give you positive. They call it false positives. You know, everyone's going to be, oh, your product's so good, yeah, you should launch. You know what I mean? But in the end, you have to find people that are going to criticize you, that are going to attack your idea. Those are the ones you have to listen to and really listen. Like, oh, okay, is this going to be right? You know, the only reason why I took like this brand is because they do so well in Australia. You know, and try to learn. But it's like, okay, if somebody came up to me and said they wanted to create a new energy drink, I'll be like, do you give up? You know
I mean, it
you're
works, right? But you gotta see.
But right now in that industry, especially for energy drink, you have to have $10 million in like advertising.
Well,
if you don't have that, you can't just start.
Well,
you
that's
have like
that's the
idea.
thing. That's the
Crazy.
thing. Like I don't ever tell anybody like you're not gonna make it because it's the same thing. Like you were saying, they just have to pivot, you know, and then you know, like then it'll work, right? Or it might not work. There's no guarantees. But then, I mean, when you're launching a brand nowadays, I feel like you have to have millions just to like get you to the first step, you know, like because after you pay people, you use samples, like social media, and if you get into an account, paying for the ad fees and all that stuff, and gas, and I mean,
Well, if you grow organically, it'll take a while. You know what I mean? So that's where you really have to bootstrap and decide, okay, can I last 3 years and not making money?
Yeah.
You know, can I eat ramen every day or something?
Yeah, really sacrifice.
Or you're
right?
Hispanic, eat street tacos.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah, we'll get off that, but yeah, yeah, that was kind of like what we want to talk about. Kind of see like because you're very interested in the fact, like I said, that you're working on both sides of it, and then I mean I've always been interested in the Asian products, Asian community, because I grew up in Monterey Park, Niagara. A lot of our friends are Asian. You know, I grew up in that Asian, you know, surrounding, and I just feel like same thing with Hispanic products. They can do really well in American stores. Asians can do well in Hispanic stores.
True.
You know, it's really
I
finding
think
that right.
like what you said, I don't think I was trying to discourage people. I just wanted them to realize like what you have to be ready for.
Yeah.
You know, like you're gonna get like rejected like all the time, you know. But it's the end. It's like you have to continue to push and listen to, because there's products that come to our into our office and I roll my eyes like, oh my god, I couldn't believe you did that. But I feel bad too because I knew.
Well, maybe it's just not right for you.
Yeah,
You know?
I don't know. No, there's some products it's like just really can't.
No, I know, but think about it.
And they spend like so much money. And
I mean, but you probably would have thought that about Red Bull too. You know, sometimes it's timing, or maybe it's good in Australia, maybe it'll be good in Europe.
maybe
right?
I haven't created something that's like out there yet. I
Maybe.
mean, I kind of take ideas that are already like kind of successful and they kind of tweak it a little bit. You know, but there's some that they come up with something like.
Well, I've heard, and I've said this before, that there's no such thing as a new idea. It's just like a combination of ideas together. You know,
But there's some I hear it, I'm like, man, that's genius, you know.
Yeah.
So there are going to be some that are bad.
But you gotta think about it too, like, for instance, with your father in this company, like, people probably thought he was crazy when he first started. You know, he probably got rejected how many times before, you know, like, it started going, you know, like, he didn't, you know, all of a sudden start and he was successful. He probably failed and got rejected like crazy back in the day. And now, you know, everybody's reaping the benefits of him willing to take that risk, him willing to take that rejection, him willing to have people say, like, you're not going to make it, what are you doing, you're crazy. You know, so, and those are the ones that become successful, the ones that are crazy enough to go after it and do it. this is what I see though, is that a lot of people are not open to suggestion, or they're so in love and consumed with what they created that they're not willing to listen or see the reality of it. It's not that you don't have a good product, or it's not that it's not capable. Maybe you just need to tweak it a little bit. Maybe it is the pricing, maybe it is the flavor, maybe it is the size, or maybe it's just not the right timing. Maybe you need to take it to a different type of market. You know, so that's what I see. It's not that it can make it, but it's like, well,
Yeah, everything can do that.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of prices I work with that, like I said, you know, like, I can't believe anyone wants to buy that or drink that, but, you know, there's a place for a lot of different things. You know, so that's where I look at it. Well, that's what we want to talk about. Is there anything else you want to add to it? I mean, we could take a tour too, like check it out, see, you know, the rest of the office and see what you guys are doing. So, Tim, we always try to end this stuff with a quote. You know, do you have a particular quote that you really like?
I think one thing people need to realize that every day is a new day. I know you've heard that before, but the story I want to talk about is, I remember when I was eating, I first went to a restaurant that was on the Bund in Shanghai. So the Bund is like the river that goes through the city, and I was just amazed. I was like, wow, this view is amazing. You know, you're so lucky to work here. And then I think with everyone would have the same answer. She said, that's how I felt the first day, but now it's just whatever. And I said, shouldn't you think like that, like the first day you worked here every day, so that it makes work a lot better? You know, so I think that's what I would say. Like, every day is a new day. You should wake up like really excited to do something, you know, and just look forward to the day. Don't just be like, oh, I'm going back to work, you know what I mean? Because that first day, that first kiss, that first date, the first time you ate Thai food, the first time you ate a taco, just remember that. And I think it's really hard to remember that, but somehow I'm able to like do that every day. Like, I wake up like that, you know, looking forward to the day. And I think that's where a lot of people forget, like, how they got started, you know, like how they got started. How did you feel, you know, like, how did you feel about the passion of working? How did you feel about your brand, you know? Just don't forget that. I think that's the hard part. Even with dating, with life, with having a family, it just can continue throughout everything you do. And I just feel like people lose that feeling, you know, like, oh, what am I gonna eat today? You know what I mean? So I think that's one thing. Just remember your first time.
Well, with that being said and knowing you, I mean, I could attest to what you're saying is true for you. I mean, we've done a lot of trade shows together, and me and you do it together, and we kill it over all the booths around us because of your energy. You know, we'll be doing an event for 3 or 4 days, and your level of energy is the same from the moment we started to the time we end. And everybody, it's like everybody's looking at us. The other booths start looking at us, right? Like, you're in the front of the booth, I'm behind the booth, and you're kind of bringing people in, making people laugh. And it's that mindset and the things that you were talking about, you know, like, you do have that is the way you are. And then I'm over here in the back just kind of like trying to corral them in and tell them about this stuff. But you look at everybody else and they just don't have that energy. You know, like, after the first day, after the 6th hour, they're like already burnt out. And we'll be there for 8-10 hours on the 4th or 5th day, and your energy level's still the same. So whatever you're saying right now, I see it. It's true.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. Maybe it's just natural, but that's one thing that I would recommend for people. Like, really look forward to the next day. Don't think about yesterday. And I know it's hard and it's easy to say, but it's just like, if you just say, plan ahead. Like, when you go to bed, you have to decide what's my action plan for tomorrow. You know what I mean? One thing that I remember reading from it's a guy who started Virgin.
Bronson.
Richard
Bronson, yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that he said was like, oh, not from him, it was another guy. But what he said was like, when you get into work, don't open your email, you know, because you're doing other people's work by replying. You should go in there with an action plan, even if it's like 30 minutes. What are you going to do first? You know what I mean? So he said whenever he gets into the office, he never opens email. He has a plan of whatever it is, you know, like, oh, I'm going to write this or I'm going to do that. And then email is always last. So that's another recommendation. Don't open your emails in the morning.
Well, thanks for letting us do this. I mean, like I said, you and your family are successful, and I feel that you guys are successful not only because the business, but because you guys are there for each other. And I could, you know, being in and out, you guys care about each other, and you guys are always trying to do stuff with each other. Like, you saw your little son in here earlier, and that's just really the way it is.
Oh, that's not your son?
No, I thought he was your youngest employee. But I was talking to him, so I know he's your son. But that's the way it is here. It's like a family atmosphere, but everybody's still working hard too because they know it's helping each other out. So, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, cheers.
Let's take a quick.
Hey, you can film around, film like the outside side.
And we're at HC Foods. They've been around for about 30 years. Family-owned business. All their sales guys are usually here, but the day is ending right now, so everybody's just finishing off. They usually do products from all Southeast Asia. So let's take a look real quick. How you doing?
I'm good.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Stop hiding. And then here's like their showroom, just kind of a lot of the products that they carry. And you got a little bit of everything: juices, teas, chips, silverware.
We gotta show them the Red Bulls, man. That's
Red
actually
Bulls,
really
so-
cool.
Here's the original Red Bull. Another one from Thailand. HC Foods was actually one of the first people to ever sell Red Bull. This one is from Cambodia. It tastes just like Red Bull, and it tastes really good. And then for the Hispanics, the Lipo Vitan. That's what the Hispanics used to carry, and still do some. They got jellies, all sorts of different stuff. This was really popular too in all the Asian markets. Mr. Brown's a coffee.
Whenever, yeah.
And then canned fruits were very popular as well. Old school telephone. What do you call Batman?
Yeah, they've got so
Beers,
many
they got
products
beers
in here.
too.
How many SKUs you said they had? 2,500?
1,000, and I think it's even more than that because they keep adding stuff. Just go take a look at their warehouse. And then they're always getting samples, having the team try them, staff try them. One of the offices over here.
Oh, there's Sam.
You're okay, you're okay.
We're just doing a little walkthrough.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead. No, you're good. We got Grace over there. She very professional, handles a lot of the business. Make sure Tim does what he's supposed to.
Keeps everyone in check.
That was Tim's office.
สีกดนั่นนะ
A lot of stuff going on. I mean, they get all sorts of stuff imported all the time, so it's just like it's nonstop.
เธอใช้นิ้วโป้งเหรอshe used the
This place is big.
Yeah, come on.
thank God
Sorry, she gave me a jump. Usually I never
Just real
have
quick
problems.
with like
Today
all
is
the
my
administrative
first day.
stuff comes out here.
Problem.
Very cool. End of day.
That's not going there. They're serving because they're working. But that's where the father's office is at. The main man. Tim right here. And then the warehouse. I mean, these guys are delivering truckloads every day. If you come in the morning, you see all this coming in. And it's pretty big. It's good size.
Heads up.
That's Joel. He runs the warehouse manager right here. And then a lot of their employees have been here for a while too. It's like really family. Even their employees are like family. Like they always have events together and invite the family. And so everybody kind of knows each other. But you can see a lot of the stuff they sell. A lot of the stuff they sell is by pallets. They send it across pretty much all the U.S. So, pretty good business, pretty good size. Then we got to represent Joe with the Rice Buddy.
I like this shirt, for real.
You got to be superhero.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Those are V-necks? Or you just have it kind of stretched out a little
So
bit?
just stretch.
He tries to pull it down.
That's
so it
right.
looks better.
I'm trying to be buff here.
All right.
That's been tough. It was cool. It's kind of like we had this side only. And then I think 10 years ago, we leased this to somebody else and we took over. So it's cool.
Okay, that's a good idea, though.
Yeah.
Because that kind of helps some cash flow to help you guys.
Yeah. But I know last fall, we were like, oh, we gotta rent another place because we were like going crazy. It was nuts. I don't know. I think it's just in the family business, you still kind of mismanage things,
Mm-hmm.
It happens in any business. It doesn't even have to be family.
Yeah.
Hey, with stuff that is expiring, or like say you're not gonna be able to sell it, couldn't you give it away and do write-offs?
Yeah, that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah. We sell it to like those like penny to a dollar.
Yeah,
Just get rid of it.
If you have to, right?
Yeah.
You guys are selling a lot of Caribou?
Yeah. So that's the competitor to Red Bull.
Who buys so much of it? Throughout the states
Oh,
or
we
what?
sell a lot. Yeah, we sell a lot, and it's way cheaper too.
I mean, it tastes good. I like
Yeah.
it.
It's like that little bottle you saw. It's like 20 cents
Mhm.
compared to like $2, right? Or is
Yeah.
it 20 cents?
Well, it retails for 99,
Oh no, it's 40 cents.
but it would retail for
Yeah.
about 99.
One bottle? That bottle?
No, the cans.
Oh, the cans. Yeah, 99 cents. But remember what I was telling you about? Like, there's bad products. Like, I went to Thailand and they wanted me to sell barbecue sauce because they knew barbecue sauce is in America. And I was like, are you crazy? You want me to bring barbecue sauce to America? Product of Thailand? I was like, you must be crazy. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Now that you say it that way, I was like, because they made it for the domestic market. And they're like, oh, we made this pretty good. Bring it back to the U.S. I'm like, you fucking
But
crazy.
you guys sell crazy stuff. Like to us, it'd
Yeah,
be
but
crazy. But
why
not
would
to
I
you.
bring barbecue sauce from Thailand?
Dude, like one of the craziest things was the bird's nest.
Oh, that
was
one
like,
can still
oh,
work.
man.
That can still work. You know what I compared to? Now that I thought about it, you know how like they're like,
Thanks for listening. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram.